none of this remains. What remains is basically the sad story of you know, those who couldn't flee from there, those who in one way or another remained, and still these people who remained in Jaffa are still being ethnically cleansed as we speak. Nowadays it's done by legal means, and people who have been living there for decades, maybe some of them even before 48, are now being kicked out of their homes for legal reasons in order to push them out of there, because the land is worth quite a lot, and then they're building new complexes there and, for the rich.
Do you think that all the changes going on in Egypt can help liberate Palestine in any way? Since, like before Mubarak fell, and when it was propped up by the US especially, it was kind of like another barrier for Gaza kind of thing. And I mean, regardless of the course it might have taken now, there's still a lot of popular mobilisations going on in Egypt, a lot of industrial action and protests still going on. And I think like things could change for the better. Do you think that can help Palestinians?
Yes, I'm sure it can help. I mean, I think that many people took inspiration in what was happening in Egypt and the rest of the Arab world. You know, there's many views about what was happening, but for sure, what cannot be denied is that there was, you know, this genuine feeling among people, even though the result could be different than, you know, what was anticipated, what was wanted. But there was a genuine tendency in Egypt, of all places, where really no one thought that Egypt could transform in such a way that people could be radicalized to such extent, especially in Egypt. And so these, you know, real democratic tendencies and you know, this demand for equality, for basic rights of people and so on, this is very inspirational. And also we have to remember, like you mentioned, Mubarak was, I mentioned that Israel is the country that is receiving as much funding from the US as all other countries in the world combined, but the second country on the list used to be Egypt. Egypt was a very good friend of the US. And the fall of Mubarak, even if only symbolically, resembles a change. Shows that, yes, we can come out of it and we can transform this place. And so, you know, it's kind of in the making. We don't know where this is heading, but for sure we can influence it. And that is again why this whole rights-based approach, demanding the most basic rights of people, because when we talk about Palestinian rights, there's many more rights that we could discuss, but we're not, because what we're discussing is really the most fundamental rights, the ones that are the bare minimum. So basically what we're saying is equality or nothing. Don't ask for anything, you know, less than equality.
I'm curious about anarchists against the wall. It seems like you mostly have a solidarity framework where you do actions with organized groups in Palestine, but do you also do actions independently? And I was also wondering, you said that that Anarchists Against the Wall are a non-violent group, and I was wondering if you could say a little bit more about non-violence.
So for one thing, Anarchists Against the Wall is, you don't have to be an anarchist. It's also you know, good enough to be like, you know, activists against the wall. That's also good. Most of us are anarchists. Most of us are vegan, gay friendly. You know, it's all kind of like in one. But you know, there's really no. It is, like you said, it's mostly about solidarity. It's about standing up for the rights of the oppressed and coming in solidarity. So we're not coming in to dictate the means of struggle, but rather by participation we become members of the struggle. And this is the main thing. And it's an activist group that's focusing on direct action, on doing things on the ground, rather than writing manifestos and signing different petitions and so on. We don't care about this too much, and more about the work on the ground. The other thing was, I'm sorry, there was another aspect.
Non-violence?
Non-violence, thanks. So, like I mentioned about the Palestinian popular struggle that first of all, it's popular. It's the popular struggle. Apart from that, it's also non-violent. But the main thing is that it's coming from the people. Also, with Anarchists Against the Wall, I mean, look, we're the nice kind of anarchists. I mean, not like, you know, the Greek or whatever. I mean, it's more about working regardless of the laws that prohibit us from even entering sometimes military occupied areas, and standing up for our friends who are, you know, who we demonstrate together, and we suffer the consequences of whatever, you know, the military repression and so on that takes place there. Still, we are the privileged. I mean, I'm saying we work together, we participate in this, we act as equals, and still we're not equal. At the end of the day, we go back home to Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and so on, and then, you know, there could be a night raid that night because those people who were demonstrating chose to raise their head. They could get arrested, children could get arrested, and so on. So, you know, that's what we do. And also, it's not only about the demonstrations, it's also about, it's about crossing the barrier, the border, more both physically and mentally. So, basically, when I say that we're in this together, yes, we're trying to act as equals, even though the situation is highly not mutual and not equal. And it's both about the action that we take, the demonstrations and so on, but also about the interaction. Also, obviously, about legal aid. So, for example, when we fundraise for Anarchists Against the Wall, we also make sure that the legal aid also goes to defend Palestinians who struggle with us, not only the Israelis. There's obviously just, you know, interaction. I mean, we also you know, take things to be fixed and serviced in Israel because this cannot be done in the West Bank. Sell produce that our friends, you know, whatever vegetables and so on that they grow, and we sell them in Tel Aviv. You know, it means more than just the demonstrations, but the core of it is about the action on the ground that we take. And also, you know, also Chomsky is an anarchist, so you don't have to look scary in order to be an anarchist.
I have another question. So how did you get involved? What is it that got you involved personally?
So, I would say that the main thing for me, the main transformation in a sense for me was when for 6 years I was contemplating, you know, that military service is mandatory in Israel. So by law, every high school senior has to go, Jewish high school senior has to go and serve in the army. And for 6 years I was contemplating the idea of whether I'm willing to serve in the army or not. But since we're being brainwashed from kindergarten, literally from kindergarten, about serving in the army, and Israel is a very, apart from being very, very racist, also a very militaristic society. And even though I was contemplating the idea for a long time, I still ended up joining the army. And 2 months later, first of all, I realized that, okay, it's time to stop eating animals. I mentioned that I'm vegan, so, you know, it started then that I realized, okay, I've been thinking about being vegetarian for a long time. Now it's time to put it in practice. All of a sudden, this like realization came that, you know, I have a choice in the matter. And about a week later, so 2 months into the army, I realized that it's about time to leave the army. And all of a sudden, what happened is that the whole sense of being a parasite or a traitor, this is what we are trained to believe, that, you know, if I don't serve in the army, then I'm a parasite in Israeli society. So this whole notion of being a parasite or a traitor just disintegrated in front of my eyes. And from that moment on, it was very easy. Because, you know, the only thing that you can be a traitor of is humanity. And from that moment on, I stopped being a soldier. It only took me a very, very long time to convince the authorities, but I wasn't going to take part in whatever, you know, people in the army do. It took about 1.5 years to get exempted. Unfortunately, I didn't end up in military jail, but many activists actually are conscientious objectors who had to go through jail in order to get exempted. I didn't have this, this option actually.